Good morning, Professor K. Suresh, Chief Executive, JSS Law College, Dr. N. Vani, Principal, JSS Law College, Mr. Madhu Kumar, Mr. Josephine Thomas, Mr. Abhijit, and in absence, Dr. Vasanth Kumar and Dr. Harish, and online present, Professor T.N. Venkata Reddy. Respected dignitaries, esteemed speakers, scholars, participants joining us from different parts of India and abroad. As the coordinator of today's program, I welcome you all. And this program titled 2 Days International Conference on Legal Dimension of Agriculture Subsidies and the WTO System, jointly organized by the Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore, JSS Law College, Autonomous Mysore, UCLouvain, St. Louis, Brussels, Belgium, and the School of Law, Mount Kenya University. In addition to that, Greenlife, Crop Technology, Mysore. Agriculture today lies at the heart of the global governance. It shapes global market and competitiveness, determine food securities, and influence rural life, define the development priorities. Yet, at the international level, the agriculture subsidies remain a complex issue and legal debates among the different countries. To balance between the domestic policy and international trade disciplines, it needs to be discussed, and it generates cooperation and continuous discussion among the countries. This conference aims to critically evaluate the structure of the subsidies that is covered like under the umbrella of amber, green, and blue, and so on. So to proceed today, it is my honor to invite Dr. N. Vani, Principal of JSS Law College, Autonomous, and the President of the current session to deliver the welcome address. Ma'am, we request you please proceed today's program.
Thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you present online and offline to this two-day international conference on legal dimensions of agricultural subsidies in the WTO system. I deem it a great privilege and an honor to welcome the dignitaries and the host of this wonderful conference. First of all, I would like to invite in his absence here, Professor Dr. Loknath N.K., Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Mysore, Karnataka, India, and the Registrar, Srimati M.K. Savita, University of Mysore, to this program. Nextly, I take a great honor in welcoming Professor K. Suresh Sir, Chief Executive, JSS Law College, Mysuru, to this program. Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin, Dean, Faculty of Law, Chairman, Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysuru, representing the University of Mysore and the Law Department. Nextly, we have Professor Dr. Kenneth Wine Motoma, Professor of Law, School of Law, Mount Kenya University. Dr. Vasanth Kumar Thimakapura, who's just joined us, Managing Director and Chief Scientific Officer of Greenlife Croptech Private Limited, Vijayanagar, Mysuru. Professor Dr. Nicholas, Professor Ordinaire, Full Professor, Jean Monnet Chair, St. Louis University, Belgium. And then we also have very renowned Professor Dr. T.N. Venkata Reddy, sir, who is online with us. He is from the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru, GKVK. He is the guest of honor for this program. He is specialized in the market policy in India, which he'll be highlighting during his session. And sir, of course, will be talking, Vasanth Kumar sir will be talking about agricultural policy, a pragmatic approach, and he is the chief guest for this day's program. I will fail on my duty if I don't invite Dr. Syed Qudrat Hashimy. Congratulations on his getting the PhD degree, the highest degree from the University of Mysore just day before yesterday. And Mr. Josephine, and of course, the student coordinator, Abhijit, our systems manager, Madhu Kumar sir, and our support system, Mr. Kumar, to this program. Once again, a very warm welcome to one and all. I did.
Thank you, ma'am. It is now our privilege to invite our guest of honor, Professor Reddy sir. Before sir, we proceed with you, we would like to introduce you briefly to our audience. I would like to request Mr. Abhijit to brief you about you to the audience. Abhijit, please proceed.
It is my distinct honor to introduce a distinguished academic and visionary in the field of agriculture, Professor Dr. T. N. Venkata Reddy. He is a retired professor from the University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru, and currently serving as visiting faculty at the Institute of Agribusiness Management at UASB and at College of Agriculture, Tirupati. With a career dedicated to agricultural marketing and agribusiness management, Dr. Reddy has served in pivotal leadership roles. He was the chair professor for the Karnataka State Agricultural Marketing Board and assisted the National Institute of Agricultural Marketing in drafting rules for the Government of India's farm laws in 2020. Additionally, he has served as a member of the 12th Plan Evaluation Team for the Indian Coffee Board and the Conceptual Review Team for the Indian Institute of Speed Research. Dr. Reddy is deeply committed to institutional development for farmers. He is the founder, mentor, and advisor of the Srinivasapura Mango Farmers Producer Company in the Kolar district. Furthering his impact on policy, he was part of the study team assessing the feasibility of establishing Raitara Sante in Karnataka and is a certified master trainer for agricultural market reforms. A prolific educator, Dr. Reddy has been nominated twice for the ICAR Best Teacher Award. He has guided numerous PhD and postgraduate scholars and delivered over 800 lectures at state and national training programs. His expertise has taken him across the globe, having visited 27 countries across 4 continents. Born in an agricultural family in Tupali village, Kolar district, Dr. Reddy has remained true to his roots, demonstrating his commitment to education and equity. He instituted an endowment merit scholarship specifically for rural girl students pursuing agribusiness at UASB. You may also recognize him as a marketing expert from his appearance in First News Kannada, Zee Kannada, and Doordarshan. Please join me in welcoming a leader who has consistently worked towards the development of farming communities and agriculture system, Professor Dr. T. N. Venkata Reddy.
Sir, good morning to all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Slide is visible.
The slide is not visible. Can you?
Not visible.
Yes.
Please once again share the presentation, sir. Click share button and
post ಮಾಡಪ್ಪ.
Sir, now
now it is visible, sir.
Yes, yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, sir. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session on WTO and its impact on Indian agriculture, with special reference to subsidies to agriculture. As you are aware, it is very, very contentious issue. Subsidies is contentious issue for the simple reason farmers across the world, whether it is France, USA, Japan, or Pakistan or India, they want remunerative prices to their product. If you look at agriculture scenario across the world, majority of the farmers are not getting profits. They are at the losing side. Added to this, WTO, World Trade Organization, which was started in 1995, January 1st, have important implications on agriculture of all countries. As and today, there are 165 countries who are members of the WTO, and 3 important provisions in the Agreement on Agriculture in WTO are market access, that is domestic market access, means say for example, Arcanut grown in India should be opened for sales in Pakistan, or Basmati rice in India, grown in India, should be open to the sales in Iran. And at the same time, there are certain restrictions regarding quantity, quality, sanitary, phytosanitary, intellectual property rights. That is about domestic market access. And major important provision is, which is a topic for discussion today, is domestic support or subsidies in agriculture. In fact, last year, farmers in France virtually ransacked the Parliament of France, demanding more subsidies to the agriculture because they're losing heavily in agriculture. Similarly, scenario is not different in other countries of the world. So domestic support or subsidies is another major concern. Further, the third and most important provision in agreement on agriculture is export competition or export subsidies, export competitiveness and or export subsidies. To start with, just have a look at this abbreviated form, BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Why this bloc emerged in the WTO is the biggest challenge and the genesis of subsidies in agriculture. BRICS, why America is not here? Why France is not here? Why Japan is not here? Why UK is not here? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have formed a bloc in the WTO with a specific purpose of demanding fair trade practices for agricultural commodities, particularly domestic market access and subsidies. Look at the BRICS opinion and WTO on agreement on agriculture and subsidies. See, most developed countries in the world wanted domestic market access clause to be immediately operational. They want to sell maize from America, milk from America, or kiwi fruit from New Zealand, or apple from America to all other third world countries or developing countries. So domestic market access is the priority of most developed countries in the world. But the thing is, in the agreement on agriculture, all the three should be implemented at a time. That is domestic market access, export competitiveness, and the important thing is this subsidies. So what this developed countries indicates is, first you open your domestic markets for member countries' produce. Subsidies we will see later. We will think later. Let us see. First open your domestic market. This is the opinion of developed countries. Vehemently opposing this stand of the developed countries bloc in the WTO, a ginger group, a group of countries where really agriculture matters, where more than 50% of their population engaged in agriculture, including China, India, Brazil, and Brazil is the biggest among them. So what the stand of these BRIC countries in the WTO is, this should happen simultaneously. Yes, we will open our domestic markets, bring down the subsidies to agriculture in all the countries on par with agreed terms and conditions, was the stand of this BRICS. But the stand of the developed countries led by USA, Japan, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and other European Union countries is, first you open the domestic markets, then slowly we'll introduce the subsidy class. So this was not acceptable. These countries came into one platform demanded for simultaneous implementation, and at one point of time, it was so severe, they were thinking of abandoning WTO, abolishing WTO, come out of WTO, just because there was a deadlock. But fortunately, good sense prevailed on all countries. They continued their negotiations beyond Doha, beyond Hong Kong, and so many sittings were met. They made a sitting and they continued negotiations for curtailing or streamlining the domestic market access and subsidies. So the important objective of agreement on agriculture main aim is to encourage fair trade, very, very fair trade. Say, for example, Japan extends 75% subsidy of its GDP in agriculture to the farming community in production of all commodities, including rice. Say, for example, in India, hardly 5% of the GDP of agriculture is flown as a subsidy in the form of power subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, seed subsidy, implement subsidy, all subsidies put together. It is less than 5% of GDP from agriculture in India. Say, for example, if Japan and India competes to sell the rice to Saudi Arabia or to the UAE, United Arab Emirates, definitely Japan can sell rice cheaper than India because it costed less to the farmers, but government subsidies are pegged at 72%, 73%. This is nothing but distortion of trade, not a level playing field. So, the very basic foundation of WTO agreement on agriculture is to encourage fair trade. If this is allowed, where developed countries extend huge subsidies, whereas developing countries are curtailed of course, they are not curtailing. They don't have enough resources to subsidize the agriculture. Hence, the developed countries want to open the doors of the developing countries for their products, at the same time postpone the subsidies. Look at this example, live example. World Trade Organization panel ruled in favor of Brazil, Australia, and Guatemala in their trade disputes with India over sugar subsidies and asked New Delhi to conform with global rules. Just for your information, very recently, 1 month back, sugarcane growers have boycotted the supplying of cane to the sugar factories, and sugar factories are not budging to increase the procurement price for sugarcane, whereas CACP, Commission on Agriculture Cost and Prices, Government of India, recommended for 3,500 rupees per ton of cane was not honored by the sugar factories. This is one thing. Subsidies extended by the government. And finally, government of Karnataka and of course Maharashtra, which is highest producer of sugar in the country, extended this facility to the sugar growers. But come to the India as a country, we are extending more subsidies to sugar in India, and they have complained. Brazil, Australia, and Guatemala raised a dispute in the dispute redressal forum of the WTO. The cases brought before the WTO 19, the rival producers alleged that India had broken WTO rules by providing excessive domestic support and export subsidies for sugar and sugarcane. This was the allegation charge leveled against India on sugarcane. To quote the contemporary latest example, how subsidies varies in different countries will not create fair trade practices, level playing field, which is supposed to be addressed by WTO. So this disputes committee recommended that India should bring down its subsidies in conformity with its obligations under the Agreement on Agriculture and the Subsidies and Countervailing Measure Agreement, the panel said. That means there is a forum to regulate the subsidies, but even till date, the final signing of this agreement on subsidies is not yet finalized. It is yet to be finalized and agreed. So the WTO report said that for 5 years, last 5 years, sugar season between 2014, 15 and 19, India provided domestic support to its sugarcane producers in excess of the maximum level of 10% permitted by the global agriculture deal. This 10% is 10% of the GDP from agriculture can be given as a subsidy to assist, help vulnerable sector of the economy like agriculture, unlike that of service sector and manufacturing sector. Say, for example, 84% of Indian farmers' size of holding is less than 2 hectares, and 50%, more than 60% is under rain-fed agriculture. So to avoid, to help this scenario, the government want to help, extend some subsidies to the dryland farmers and farmers affected by floods and droughts across the country. So it is nearby, but the complaint lodged by other countries against India in the sugar subsidy is we are exceeding 10% of the GDP from agriculture is upheld by the WTO dispute redressal forum. And further, quantitative restrictions is another big thing that is changed the scenario. We have removed the quantitative restrictions and in addition to the subsidies. So look at what China did in ready-made garments, flooded America with a lot of subsidy to textile and apparel, and its share has increased by 75% in the global market. So China said to capture 70% of US market and 50% of global textile trade industry. So finally, what is that matters is there should be a level playing field in terms of subsidies and say domestic market access. It allows member countries should provide 3 to 5% market access. No doubt, this market access and subsidies should go together. Domestic consumption of 1986 and 88 is taken as a base, and with taking that as a base, one should allow minimum 5% of the domestic gross product of the produce to the other member countries. But looking at this, in spite of lowest subsidies given by the government to agriculture in India compared to developed countries, India can exploit the situation only when goods are competitive in prices and of high quality to suit the importing countries. Say, for example, Basmati rice, India is the market leader with almost 40% in the global trade. Gherkins exports from India constitutes 40%, 30 to 35% of the global trade. But no subsidy is given to the gherkin production in India, domestic subsidy, whereas in European Union, they extend support to the gherkin production, though it is produced only for 2 months off season in Europe. Rest of the 10 months, gherkin moves from India to Europe, America and other countries. But the subsidy matters between the countries. So importing countries, look at what is there in spite of this low subsidies extended to the farming sector in India. India have great potential and there is negative impact and positive impact. Rice export adversely affected after WTO, and there is a need for competing with Vietnam, Thailand, where they are selling at low prices and subsidies. More subsidies, low prices. Vietnam and Thailand is exporting, whereas India is not competitive. So this cannot happen. Come to wheat, export adversely affected. Low prices and subsidies and support to European Union and US. European Union and US extending huge subsidies for wheat production, whereas hardly it is peanuts we are exporting either in the form of seed subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, water subsidy, and other direct benefit transferred to the farmers. That is Pradhan Mantri Kisan Sanman Yojana, 6,000 rupees or what so, all put together. The subsidies given by Indian governments and state governments is very, very less compared to developed countries. Wheat and rice is the example. So we need to elimination of export subsidies and domestic support to these countries. So oil cake adversely affected East Asia crisis and genetically modified varieties in USA, Argentina and Brazil subsidizes in USA hugely for oil cake. So improved varieties of oil seeds, particularly soybean, seek reduction in subsidies in USA. We want USA to reduce their subsidies before allowing our doors to the developed countries' products to India. Similarly, sugar export adversely affected. Subsidies for sugar in European Union and USA is more than India, and it cannot be a level playing field. Cotton is also adversely affected. Seek elimination of domestic support. Tea and coffee export adversely affected in India. Tea, coffee, and spices. Competition from Vietnam, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and other developing countries. Improve competitiveness of domestic production. Do not seek too much protection for developing countries. So coming to horticulture produce, this is a ray of hope, silver line for Indian agriculture, irrespective of our subsidies. Our exports have increased after WTO came into operation. And incidentally, for the information of scientists and students, the horticulture production, including fruits and vegetables, has surpassed the production of food grains, 350 million metric tons. The fruits and vegetables production has increased. Expanding area is reported. So India can focus more on horticulture products, whether NHM gives subsidy for greenhouse or polyhouse or pack house, that is well within less than 5% of the subsidies extended. Still, Indian horticulture is more competitive. Mainly, we can attribute to this cheap labor, low cost labor in India, and we need to seek improved market access, like non-tariff barriers to developed countries, like sanitary and phytosanitary, employment of child labor, and so many other things, treatment for irradiation unit and other things. So subsidies, in spite of less subsidies, Indian horticulture industry achieved a great trademark by encashing the opportunities available in India. Meat and meat products. India is number one exporter of buffalo meat in the world. India is number one, and no subsidies are being given, whereas subsidies are being extended in European Union and other countries. So meat and meat products, we need to seek reduction in subsidies in US and North America, United States and North America. Coming to dairy products, subsidies in European Union to the dairy industry is very, very high, USA and Canada. So elimination of export subsidies and domestic support in EU and USA matters a lot to Indian agriculture. Soybean oil and other vegetables, serious import threat is there. Vegetables oil, particularly palm oil from Malaysia and Indonesia, there is a threat. Palm oil, very sharp price. wood and wood products, sharp increase in import to India. And so basically, India is in advantage position on textile, cereals, fruits, dairy products. But things one cannot understand what WTO agreement on agriculture or different 6 or 7 agreements entered. See, tariffs, import tariffs. Though there is a cap, until and unless dumping is proved in the normal course, whatever tariffs are imposed for the products of similar nature in their domestic country should be the maximum tariffs that should be allowed on imports. For example, Indian agriculture products exported to USA are subjected to 50% or 100% tax by the whims and fancies of the American government. So this for textiles, in fact, textile industry is in India is becoming so vulnerable. It is in the verge of collapse. So China is flourishing. So because no countries shall talk of tariffs and domestic market access until and unless they address to their domestic subsidies for different sectors in agriculture. So the competition from China, South Korea and Philippines will be very, very severe to Indian textiles. India should drastically reduce the cost of production, increase the productivity, and if possible, the subsidies also should be increased than decreasing to the maximum allowed for different textile sector. So World Trade Agreement on Agriculture domestic support or subsidies is, as I have already told, contentious issue. Many of the farming associations in India are protesting against reduced subsidies, and developed countries subsidizes heavily to their farmers and gaining global market. And this cannot happen to these developing countries. Accessing global market and domestic subsidies are two conflicting issues. For example, share of the subsidy in total value of agriculture products in Japan is this only world data, but this speaks of how trend is there in the global domestic subsidies for agriculture. Japan 72%, Colombia 54%, South Korea 61%, Europe 37%, China 34%, Pakistan 26%, USA 28%, India 3%, and of course in the recent past it has reached 5%. So basically, until and unless this subsidies across the member countries is restored uniformly, except in emergency situations like floods, droughts, food security, and say small farmers which are economically unviable, they can give subsidies even within the framework of the WTO under green box with minimum trade distortions without affecting the global trade, like publicly funded government programs, research on agriculture, extension services. Their subsidies are allowed by all countries, agriculture extension service. And food security, say for example, 30% of the Indian population lives below poverty line. We stand 84 in the hunger index. In spite of India is self-sufficient, surplus food grains because of our policy issues. There is a scarcity of food for the needy, poor, and those with below poverty line. And government gives food subsidy, freeze food grains, and this green box allows to extend subsidy for food security, nutritional security, extension services, research, public funded government programs. Hence, there is a need even for disaster management. Lot of floods, drought reported particularly during 2025 across India. Lot of crops are damaged, and government can give any amount of subsidies to cope up with this kind of disaster management. Green box is there, and the government is really helping, but this should not be categorized under 10% cap of domestic GDP of the agriculture for subsidies. Control of pests and diseases. If there is a huge outbreak of diseases, the government can spend it to control such pests and diseases. So even structural adjustments like power structure, irrigation department, power department, electricity supply, if they want to extend some subsidy, it is allowed in the green box. So India need not worry much about subsidies, because as on today, we are still less than what maximum allowed, and it is the developed countries which needs to reduce their subsidies to reduce this minimum trade distortions, and subsidies are allowed with this another concept called blue box. It is subsidies are allowed without much subsidies, without much distortions. They are allowed for things like public funded government programs, production limiting programs. Say, for example, there is a surplus production of rice or tomato or mango in the country. If the government gives subsidy to the farmers to not to grow that particular crop, that's called production limiting programs. It is allowed. It will not affect adversely in the global trade. In America, they will extend subsidy to the farmers for not cultivating particular crop or field to limit their production to avoid glut in the market. So production limiting programs grouped under blue box where subsidies are allowed, and India, we don't have such a problem here right now. And crop insurance, say for example, in India, particularly states like Andhra Pradesh and Telangana subscribes to the crop insurance scheme by paying 100% from the government exchequer, because poor farmers with less than 1 hectare, less than acre, they cannot insure the crops. And this policy has helped farmers to get the compensation during either crop loss due to drought or the floods. So participation in insurance scheme, so by paying from the government exchequer, is categorized under blue box, where it will not have impact on the greater impact on the global competitiveness and uniform subsidies level. Minimum trade distortions, income safety net programs like farmers, small farmers. So coming to domestic support, that is amber box, trade distortion subsidies not allowed, banned, no subsidies should be given. But in reality, developed countries are still continuing these subsidies which are grouped under amber box. Amber box provisions are the provisions in subsidies where these countries, no country can provide subsidy for agriculture in this not allowed. Public funded government programs where in the reduction of agreement to measurement of support, extent of subsidies a country can give to its farm sector is grouped under previous boxes. But come to the trade distortions not allowed beyond specific level, or aggregate measurement of support, refers to the extent of subsidies a country can give to its farm sector. Aggregate measurement of support refers to extent of subsidies a country can give to its farm sector. Say, for example, GDP, see, only 3% of the population depends on agriculture in America, 4% in Japan, 50% in India, and majority of them are poor and marginal small farmers, landless laborers working on farms. All this makes the case for extending support, subsidies, for example, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme provided by the government to help these landless laborers to work for the public purpose is also questioned. So basically, developed countries, as per the Amber box, they can give, but they cannot exceed developed countries less than 5% of the total volume of agriculture production, and developing countries 10%, less developed countries no more. This is the most rational principle agreed in the WTO, with a differential rate of subsidies allowed 5% for not more than developed countries, not less than, it is more than, not more than 5% of agriculture production in the developed countries. Means GDP percentage of the subsidies shall not be more than 5% for countries like European Union, USA, Japan, Australia, and other countries. Come to developing countries like India, Pakistan, Brazil, South Africa, up to 10% allowed. Whereas in less developed countries, where the severe problem is there, no bar they can give subsidies. So no product specific support. Say for example, MSP, non-product specific support and product specific support. The sugarcane falls under product specific support. Subsidy to the sugar industry, subsidy to the fertilizer industry. Fertilizers are applied to all crops, not to the particular product like sugar. So in Amber box, they are not allowed to go beyond these limits which are fixed. Non-product specific support like seeds, it is not to particular crop, seeds of all crops. Fertilizers are applied to all crops. Irrigation is given to all crops. Pesticides are applied. So subsidies given should be non-product specific support is allowed as per the Amber box. Product specific support, minimum support price falls under product specific support. Say for example, a millet crop, MSP is 4,300. For maize, it is 2,300. It is crop specific subsidy. This is not allowed as per the agreement, but in practice, it is yet to come finalized. Still negotiations are going on, and domestic subsidies are extended by different countries, and still they are making into the international trade. So minimum support price is biggest challenge to Indian subsidies, Indian agriculture subsidies. Out of 22 commodities for which Commission on Agriculture Costs and Prices is giving MSP, 19 are listed in the commitment to the WTO. Once this 10% limit is fixed, we need to eliminate our subsidies to 19 commodities out of 22 commodities for which India and CSCP extends minimum support price, MSP. So further, product specific supports under public distribution system of food grains in India will not be affected. See, so free food grains are given. It is not a product specific support, it's a consumption support, as 30% of the Indian population still lives below poverty line. Subsidized food items given in the public food distribution system will not attract, will not be affected by this withdrawal of the subsidies. Export subsidies. Coming to export subsidies, there are countries which provides subsidizes 50% of the transport cost to gain the global market. Transport, whether it is shipped or by air. Fortunately, India is very, very comfortable. We are not extending any export subsidies except exempting profits earned out of exports under Section 80cc. So developed countries to have subsidies by 2000, and that is already gone, this old data. This India is not giving any subsidy to its export except Section 80C provision, where 80HC of Income Tax Act. India exporters of agri-commerce do not get any direct subsidy. The only subsidy is exemption of income tax on profits from exports under Section 80HC. Even if they remove this, Indian agriculture is more competitive in the global trade compared to subsidies already being given by developed countries. So export competitiveness is enjoyed in, say, for example, Karnataka. Rice, maize, groundnut, red gram, and cotton. If subsidies are brought to the uniform level across the country, a state like Karnataka in India can enjoy the comparative advantage, competitiveness compared to other players in the global market in rice, Tungabhadra command area, Krishna command area, Kaveri command area, and even North Karnataka. Maize. Karnataka is number one in Indian production, maize production. We have comparative advantage. Groundnut, red gram, cotton. So basically, there is a scope for taking advantage of the opening of global markets for Indian agriculture. Mainly, we grow throughout the year, labor is cheap, and only biggest worry is quality of agriculture products. In spite of this, in spite of low subsidies, competing with the most developed countries in the world, India is having trade surplus in agriculture. Not I'm talking of manufacturing and service products. In agricultural exports, India have trade surplus with all countries in the world, including China, USA. What we export agriculture products is more than what we import. We import edible oil, we import pulses, we import apple, we import pears fruit, we import palm oil, but we export much more than that what we export. So in as and today, whether it is WTO or no WTO, but the biggest challenge is trade-related intellectual property rights, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, and anti-dumping measures needs to be adopted well in advance. Like it should not happen like what happened to sugarcane in India. So these are some important issues that are to be tackled in subsidy sector in India to agriculture. With this, I think it's open for one or two questions, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for such a deliberative discourse on agricultural subsidies and the WTO jurisprudence. We are looking for some questions from audience. Is there any question concerning to Professor Reddy's speech? Seeing none, we shall move forward. It is my privilege now to invite agri-scientist, a great man in Mysore who supports farmers and chief guest of today's program, Dr. Vasanth Thimakapura, agri-scientist, managing director and chief scientific officer, to deliver a chief guest address and talk on the pragmatic approach. Before we proceed, sir, with you, we would like to introduce you to our audience. And Mr. Abhijit, it is kindly requested to you, please introduce, sir.
Make it brief, please. It is my distinct honor to introduce a towering figure in Indian agriculture, a revolutionary, a visionary, whose life is a testament to the power and science and selfless service, Dr. Vasanth Kumar Thimakapura. Dr. Vasanth Kumar is not just a scientist, he's a rare combination of farmer, teacher, researcher, science writer, photographer, and social worker. His contributions have profoundly impacted the farming community across the nation. He holds a PhD in plant pathology from the University of Mysore and brings nearly 4 decades of experience from academia, the seed industry, having worked with Pioneer Overseas Corporation, Sunseeds India, and other organizations, and governments, including serving as the technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture, Government of Karnataka. Dr. Vasanth Kumar is a true innovator known for developing two revolutionary products. Python tea, an organic seaweed extract based plant tonic that significantly increases the yield and quality of crops. Research on Python tea was even adjudged the best research at the Asian Congress of Plant Pathology and Mycology. And second product, Power Plus, a breakthrough plant extract based organic product that enables virus infected plants, such as those suffering from uh, degraded papaya ring spot virus, PRSV, to recover and yield normally. This innovation has been lauded in national and international media as a major advancement in plant pathology. Beyond his innovations, he has demonstrated an unparalleled commitment to the farmers. He established a unique micro successful finance model by providing essential agri inputs on interest free credit to over 15,000 farmers, a system with no parallel in the country. His dedication extends to education and extension. He is the author of the indispensable field guide, Plant Doctor, Practical and Pictorial Manual for Diagnosis and Management of Deficiencies, Diseases, and Insect Pests, which has been praised as the Bible of plant pathology. Furthermore, he has trained thousands of farmers and provides a free online disease diagnosis service, the first of its kind in India, through his organization, the Krishi Jnana Vijnana Vedike. His lifelong service has earned him high recognition, including the Karnataka Rajyotsava Award in 2013, the Best Science Communicator Award in 2011, the Agricultural Extension Science Award in 2007, and the Leading Scientist of the World Award in 2009. Please join me in welcoming a leader who chooses service to the Indian farming community over a comfortable life abroad, a true Krishi Vijnani and a friend of the farmer, Dr. Vasanth Kumar Thimakapur.
Start from the beginning.
Go back.
Yeah.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Abhijit, for the nice introduction. Professor Suresh, CEO of JSS Law College, Madam Vani Shree, Principal of JSS Law College, Mr. Syed Qudrat, and Abhishek and others, and Dr. Harish, and all the participants. It's my pleasure to be part of this, but let me confess that I am not a policy person. I am a hardcore scientist who works with farmers directly in the field. So, but I am invited to participate in this and give my views, but it may be different from what you think and what you have observed and what you have experienced. So my perspective is entirely from the point of Indian farmers, that too the poor farmers. So Dr. Reddy has revealed many things, and I am going to add many more proofs for that. And it is going to enforce his ideas, and he has talked about the points which I am also going to talk today. And friends, so as you know that food is the first and the most basic need, and the biggest enemy of humanity is hunger. And hunger has killed more lives than the lives, the people who died in both the world wars. So that is the power of food. And if you see this picture, so it is a sad picture where more than 800 lakh people suffer from hunger every day. And this is the kind of situation in many countries even today, though we have achieved many scientific successes. Hunger is the worst enemy of humanity, and because hunger doesn't arrive with weapons, yet it kills more surely than wars. And a society that tolerates hunger despite having science, surplus, and solutions is not poor, it is morally bankrupt. So with this background, I want to tell that food is the most important one. The COVID lockdowns have taught us that we can live without anything, any modern facilities, but not without food. But these foods are not manufactured in factories, and but it is produced in farms, and it is produced by farmers. So that is the hard fact we need to remember. Everyone who eats food, we should remember this fact, and we also should know that without farmer we cannot have food, and no farmer means no food and no future. And before 1960s, India had the population of only 50 crore people, and we were producing 50 million metric tons of food. And there was a huge shortage, which I myself has witnessed and experienced the shortage of food. And the situation was called ship-to-mouth situation. Only when the ship with food arrived from United States of America, Indian people had the food. I have eaten the food which was imported from there, which was donated by the courtesy of people of United States of America. So from there, the Green Revolution happened, and the food production jumped because of the innovation of Dr. Norman Borlaug, who is called the father of Green Revolution. He is the only in agriculture scientist to get a Nobel Prize, because there is no Nobel Prize for agriculture. He is got it under Peace Nobel. So, and because of the Green Revolution, we have been able to produce more than 330 million metric tons of grains today, and more than 350 million metric tons of fruits and vegetables, as Dr. Reddy mentioned rightly. And the GDP, of course, it has reduced from 50% before Green Revolution to 17 to 20%. But we are very good in production. We have reached the self-sufficiency status. And there is quantum leap in grain production, especially in wheat production and rice production and all that. In my opinion, because of revolution in horticultural products, we can call it as rainbow revolution, because we can see all the colors of rainbow here. This kind of situation is not only in the supermarkets, even on the streets, you can find this kind of rainbow revolution. We can, if we have money, we can go and choose any vegetable, any fruit, imported or domestically grown. That is the kind of situation today. And we have moved from food scarcity to food security. And the government had the courage to bring in food security because of this self-sufficiency. And today we all have the right to food. And the report says that when the farmer, Indian farmer, is able to feed more than 145 crore people in this country, the producer, the provider is in deep distress. For farmer suicides on the rise, as per the IB report, and we need to study the reasons for this dismal situation and bring in the right kind of solution, so that the farmers are raised above this dismal situation. So we know all that in India it is called that the farming is nothing but gambling with the monsoon, but not only with the monsoon. I say it is also gambling with pests and diseases and biotic stresses like drought or floods and so on. And of course, the cost of cultivation has increased steadily, but the prices are dipping, and farmers, the profit margin is diminishing. And the farmers also don't have the kind of financial literacy. He doesn't know how to invest his money, whether his own earnings or from the loans. And because of the diversion of loan amount to unproductive reasons like marriages, construction of buildings, homes, like that. So he is not able to use the right kind of scientific methods in his crop. So the crop productivity has come down drastically. And of course, as far as the food items are concerned, the prices are highly volatile and it is based on the supply demand situation. And in our country, the middlemen and money lenders are fleecing the farmer, and because of this, majority of his profit is going to these kind of people. And also, agricultural policies of India are mostly not in favor of Indian farmers. So in addition to this, we also have noticed a big gap in our understanding that the farmers' productivity and quality. Dr. Reddy put it rightly that we are not really competitive in majority of the cases in the global market because our productivity is very, very poor. And this productivity poor productivity is due to lack of knowledge of scientific cultivation and also lack of financial literacy. Because the modern farming is not like organic farming or traditional farming. It is basically very, very knowledge intensive and investment intensive. So both are missing in our Indian situation. Because of this, the productivity is highly reduced. And of course, when there is no productivity, you cannot expect good quality also. To be competitive in the global market, we need to produce more from less. Then only we can compete. Only when the cost of production is less and the yield are maximum and the quality is the best. So because of this reduced productivity, the profitability is diminished and farmer's repaying capacity is lowest. So he defaults on debts and he gets into that vicious cycle of debts. So when we compare, this is the point where we should focus. So because there is so much potential of our crops and fields and other parameters which are favorable in Indian farmers, but because of lack of these knowledge, the farmers are not able to get the maximum yields. So we are no way comparable to US and China in terms of productivity. And in terms of productivity, we are not even near to the world average. So this is the area we need to focus. And today, India is the world's number one in population. We have surpassed China very recently, and the population is ever increasing, and the land is shrinking. Water is becoming very scarce, and the farm labor is a big problem in villages. And we are talking about reducing the chemicals and also to reduce the cost. So the challenge is to produce more food, more nutritious food and safe food from less land, less water, less labor, and less chemicals and less cost. Yeah, and it is very much possible. So the Indian agriculture policy paradox is that we always in all our speeches we say that agriculture is the backbone of this Indian economy.
మామూలుగా కూడా ఫ్యామిలీలోనే కట్టుకోదు ఆవిడ అవునా నేను ఎప్పుడు చూడలేదు అమ్మ దొంగ కట్టుకుంటే మంచిదేలే ఎప్పుడు చూపించలే
The slide moved back.
No, if you say got it, it's yeah, it's there.
Go back.
No,
Which one?
Previous.
ముందుకు
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So it is providing livelihood to more than 50% of the population and ensures food security for over 145 crore people. Yes, we all know that fact. But yet, the average Indian farmer continues to struggle with low profitability, climate risk, market volatility, and policy uncertainties. While India has achieved remarkable success in food production, the Green Revolution, the focus of agriculture policy has largely remained on short-term welfare measures. So I want to highlight this, that we are focusing only on short-term welfare measures rather than long-term empowerment of farmers. Unless we empower our farmers and he becomes self-sustainable, then the Indian agriculture and the food security is at big danger. So these policies are often framed from urban and bureaucratic perspectives with limited grounding in the field realities. Very unfortunate that neither our netas, nor our bureaucrats, nor our top scientists who sit in this policy making, they don't have any idea about ground realities with the farmers. They have not seen, they have not gone to the fields, they don't know. They only take figures and situations from the literature and reports, and they make the policies. That is the biggest problem in our country. The central question therefore arises that are Indian agricultural policies designed to empower farmers or merely to manage rural distress? So the Indian agricultural policy has traditionally relied heavily on subsidies for fertilizers, electricity, irrigation, and seeds and pesticides or implements. So this limit, while subsidies initially helped to boost production, yes, sometimes to some extent it is required, but that is for initial stages, and then their indiscriminate continuation has resulted in soil nutrient imbalance, decline in soil organic carbon, overuse of urea and water, and the productivity has stagnated or rather diminishing. So subsidies without scientific guidance often lead to ecological and economic damage rather than sustainability. So that we need to understand. So they need to have the persons who have worked with the farmer and who have contributed physically on the ground and who has brought socio-economic changes in the farmer's field. Such people should be there in the policy making body. That is my feeling. And of course, our what are the limitations? So the fragmented risk management system. The present crop insurance and disaster relief mechanisms suffer from multiple shortcomings. Because of this, there is a delayed and inadequate compensation. And because of this, there is very low trust among farmers about the insurance. They don't want to get into that at all. And because of high premium burden and administrative complexities. Farmers are mostly illiterate and they have no time or they have no knowledge to go to a particular place to take insurances. As a result, farmers remain vulnerable to droughts, floods, pest outbreaks, and disease epidemics. So the weak agricultural extension and knowledge transfer. This is the most important one. So the India doesn't suffer from lack of agricultural technologies. In India, all agricultural universities, agricultural institutes, central and state universities, every universities have developed so many technologies, so many hybrids, so many solutions to the farmer, for the farmer, but it doesn't reach effectively and efficiently to the farmers. So India doesn't suffer from lack of agricultural technology, but from lack of effective translation of science to farmers' fields. So as a practitioner, I have shown this, the effectiveness of our technologies on the farmer's field. I'm going to show you some examples later. And market inefficiencies and value chain inequality. Farmers are the primary producers, but the least beneficiaries in the agricultural value chain. This is the point we need to keep in our mind while making the policies. The challenges include, as Dr. Reddy put it, limited MSP coverage because all the crops are not covered under MSP, and price volatility. So the government need to protect the prices. Exploitation by intermediaries, already mentioned. Poor post-harvest infrastructure. We don't have cold storages, processing units, and so on. This discourages diversification and innovation at the farm level. So the public extension systems are overstretched, while farmers increasingly depend on unverified advice from input dealers or social media. So farmers, they used to depend only on the pesticide dealers for their farm advice. And most of the time it is they themselves are not properly educated on this. And their motto is only to make more profit, more margin. And with this kind of advice, farmers have failed to grow good crops. And recently, social media also is playing a big role in agriculture extension, but those informations are not at all verified by any experts. So, according to me, the missing farmer's right is like for our children, we say right to education. So, farmer has got the basic right to scientific agriculture knowledge. This is totally missing. And the farmer themselves also don't know what to demand from the governments. So they are demanding only for scientific pricing, loan waivers or subsidies, and crop loss compensation. So, but they ignore the root cause, that lack of scientific cultivation knowledge is missing. I mean, the main thing to ask for. So they are only demanding for scientific pricing. And nobody has realized that unless the crop is grown scientifically with scientific knowledge, there is no meaning for scientific pricing. So we need to recognize the right to scientific agricultural knowledge as a farmer's right. So they should have the continuous access to scientific guidance. They should have the literacy on soil and nutrient balance and their health and fertility of soil and the health of soil, and diagnostic skills for disease, pests and deficiencies, integrated pest management and eco-friendly protection methods. And they should also have the information on market awareness and post-harvest knowledge. So in my opinion, knowledge should come as the first subsidy. The most effective support to farmers is knowledge. A pragmatic policy must prioritize free, unbiased, science-based advisory services, village-level crop diagnostics, crop-specific decision support systems, so that a knowledgeable farmer requires fewer subsidies and makes better production decisions himself. So soil and health and plant health must be treated as strategic national resources. The policy focus should include restoration of soil organic carbon, balanced plant nutrition beyond nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash, like calcium, sulfur, magnesium, and micronutrients like zinc, iron, and so on, and emphasis on disease prevention rather than curative methods. So healthy soils and plants form the foundation of sustainable productivity. So the fertilizer subsidies, the mistakes or the wrong ways of fertilizer imbalance fertilizer subsidies have caused a huge problem in farmers' fields. The core issue is the policy-driven nutrient imbalance. India's subsidy structure has unintentionally distorted farmers' behavior. When urea is extremely cheap and potassic and phosphatic fertilizers are costly, farmers naturally choose more nitrogen and less of potassium and phosphorus. Because of this, there is imbalance in fertilizer use. And see, if you look at this pie chart, so more in total, among total fertilizers used, 50% is urea only. That is the big problem. And the next one is DAP. Again, it contains nitrogen. NPK complex fertilizers also contain nitrogen. And ammonium sulfate also has got nitrogen. But when compared to nitrogen, the potash is only 9%. So, and if you look at the recent nutrient subsidy, base subsidy, for sulfur and potash, it is the least. Whereas nitrogen and phosphorus has got up to 43.6 rupees per kg subsidy. So this has created many problems, like when you use heavy nitrogen, there is excessive vegetative growth. Of course, the crop looks lush. The farmers are enticed by nitrogen because their crops will suddenly become green, but they don't know that they become weak internally. And this leads to higher vulnerability to pests and diseases, because when the nitrogen is more, the greenness is more, it attracts more pests and diseases. And because of this, farmers end up in using more pesticides, and it increases their cost of production heavily, and also it pollutes the soil, water, and also there is more residue in what we eat on our plate. So because of this, the yield is also unstable, and especially under stress during drought, salinity, and diseases. And because of this, of course, soil health is declining. That is what the talking point today, that soil degradation. And there is depletion of soil organic carbon, and continuous mining of nutrient is happening. And it also causes environmental damage, like nitrate leaching is causing water pollution in rivers and even in oceans. And of course, it leads to economic loss, and because farmers spend more later on disease and pest control when they save on fertilizer, especially nitrogen-based fertilizers. In short, India has moved from under fertilization to misfertilization.
You want to?
Yeah. So every nutrient has got its own role in crop development and yield. So we need to focus on the balanced nutrition by changing our subsidy policy on fertilizers. The current system rewards excess and penalizes the balance. To correct this, subsidies must shift from products to nutrient-based equity, encourage site-specific nutrient management, promote soil testing and micronutrient inclusion, support organic carbon building practices like compost, cover crops, biostimulants, oil cakes, etc. And farmers should be empowered with knowledge, not just cheaper inputs. So fixing this will not only improve productivity, but also it reduces usage of chemical pesticides, and it improves farmers' profitability, and it enhances national food and nutrition security, and restores degraded soils and ecosystems. This is one of the simplest reforms that can create largest ecological and economic impact. If we correct the policy, farmers will correct the soil. When soil is balanced, agriculture becomes sustainable. Fertilizers are not the enemy, but the ignorance and policy distortion are. So the plant disease management, a missing policy dimension, because more than 35% of our crops are being lost to pests and diseases. If we can reduce that much loss, we can make that much more food available. We can make that much more yield to the farmers' kitty. So plant diseases, especially viral diseases, wilts and root rots cause enormous economic losses. However, agriculture policy has largely ignored the virus disease management, soil-borne root rots and wilts diseases, and there are no curative plant health solutions for these two kind of major diseases in various crops, and we don't have much knowledge about integrated pest and disease management. And soil health and plant health must be recognized as a critical component of national food security. And then coming to the power policy, the policy priority should be on the power, because most of our farmers are under dryland cultivation, and of course they are using underground water, but electricity is the most critical input which can be addressed by governments. The rational power and water policy should be like free electricity without quality and timing has resulted. In many states in India, including Karnataka, the electricity to farmers is free. But there is no quality electricity given to farmers, and timing is also very much wrong. And the pragmatic policy should ensure reliable daytime power supply, promotion of solar pumps, micro irrigation and water budgeting. Resource efficiency is more important than free resource access. Why power timing matters? Because irrigation is time critical for crops. Watering at the right stage impacts the yield. If you delay the irrigation for 2-3 days during flowering or seed setting time, the yield will drastically come down. And the unpredictable night supply disrupts farm operations. And farmers has to struggle with the sleepless nights, waiting for the power to come. And they also encounter with frequent accidents in darkness. And they are always under mental stress, and their quality of life is very poor. And we also encounter very frequent incidents of snake bites during irrigation. There is increased risk of injuries and fatalities, and safety is ignored in the current power policy. So we need to take into cognizance all these points while amending our policies in this regard. And we know that all our industries in the cities are getting proper electric supply during the day, where farmers depend only on the leftover of peak hours, and it shows misplaced priority despite farmers feeding the nation. So the myth of free electricity is that it is not truly free, because farmers are paying through risks, grid stress and transformer failures increase, and free supply doesn't equal reliable supply. So what farmers actually need is reliable daytime power for irrigation, fair and affordable power, not merely free, and farmers' dignity and safety in farming operations should be the top priority. So solar agriculture, the best sustainable solution, because India is bestowed with beautiful solar energy almost throughout the year. So the solar pump is the best sustainable solution. So because of this, daytime irrigation is possible without dependency on the grid, and it reduces government subsidy also burden in the long run, and the clean energy enhances economic resilience. So the subsidy should be given on solar panels and solar pumps. So we should encourage a micro irrigation like drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigations, and we must support the renewable power generation by farmers themselves. So what are the economic and social benefits by this policy? So higher productivity with the timely irrigation reduces accidents and health burden of the farmers, and energy self-reliance for farmers and the nation. So national action plan should be dedicated agricultural traders, feeders, and solar pump promotion and financing, and farmer-centric power reforms. These are the should be the national action plan. The message is that don't just give free electricity to farmers, give them the right electricity at the right time and the right quality, because their life is worth more than their vote. So coming to insurance part of this, so agriculture disaster management fund should be the alternative to PM Kisan and crop insurance. This is my proposal on behalf of the Indian farmers. Again, I repeat, India survives because of its farmers who feed more than 1.45 billion people. Any support to them is an investment in food security, not an act of generosity. And paying 6,000 rupees per year under PM Kisan and calling it Samman feels contradictory when a farmer sustains multiple lives every single day. Because food is not just an economic commodity, it is a weapon for a country. Food is strength, food is peace, and food is freedom, and food is sovereignty of the country. So food security should be the top priority among all the other priorities of the nation. So instead of 6,000 rupees per year under PM Kisan, which is just symbolic, which doesn't rescue farmers after crop loss, it should ask farmers to, which is asking farmers to pay premiums. But there is a delays and rejections, so that the trust of the farmers about insurance has eroded. So not even 50% of the farmers are insuring their crops. Funds are spread across all farmers. When you distribute money like this, the funds are spread across all farmers, even those unaffected. The result is no real security, no real justice. So agriculture disaster management fund is a smarter and fairer model suggested by me. Government funded, no premium for farmers, compensation only to affected farmers, input aid in the same when the crop fails due to any reasons. The input aid can be given in the form of seeds, nutrients, soil and crop health products, and digital and satellite based loss assessment can be done because of we have digital and satellite based technologies to assess the crop loss. It is very fast and accurate, so the relief can be given immediately, and we can support the farmer in this manner, in a simple manner. So the compensation for crop loss is not a charity. So no other people who are not involved in the urbanites should not think that we are the taxpayers are paying this charity. No, they are the feeders, they are the providers, and they are the protectors of our food security. So it's not a charity, it is the nation's responsibility, and it is the responsibility of every citizen who eats food. So crop losses are systemic risks. Government must shoulder them. Weather vagaries, droughts, floods, pandemics of pests or viruses, these are beyond the control of farmers. So just as the government provides insurance for banks, corporates, and industrial infrastructure, it must provide full crop risk coverage. Farmers should not be paying premiums for something they didn't cause. So a universal crop insurance where government pays 100% of premium on behalf of the farmers. Claims should be fast, transparent, technology enabled, and compensation equals real production cost plus reasonable profit. This alone can prevent farmer suicides, restore confidence among farmers, and we can encourage them to continue in the farming and ensure continuity of food production. So farmers must not be treated as receivers, but as partners. Policies should shift from subsidy mindset to productivity mindset. So again, I repeat, instead of 6,000 cash per annum. So 10 to 15,000 rupees per annum per farmer on crop insurance can be put in this fund, and guaranteed cost plus price can be given, and free scientific crop management training should be given to every farmer, and the residue free and export oriented cultivation support. This transforms respect into real opportunity. So the role of grassroots innovation and private participation should be encouraged. And India has a wealth of grassroots innovators and farmer tested solutions. I am proud to say that I am one among them. Policies must encourage non-exclusive technology dissemination, support field-proven innovations, reduce regulatory barriers for genuine innovators, and innovation must be nurtured where it emerges at the farmer's field. So the policy recommendations in summary is to establish a national farmer knowledge vision, create an agriculture disaster management fund, set up a soil and plant health authority of India, develop taluka level crop diagnostic laboratories, reform power and water delivery systems, recognize and scale successful grassroots and extension models. So, friends, I am not a person who thinks and writes or speaks from air-conditioned ivory tower. I am a field guy. I'm a practical guy. I am not theoretical at all. And I have worked in the field with the farmers throughout my career. And I am just going to one of the models where we have brought in a very big revolution in terms of productivity and quality. So here you can see the scenario before our intervention there. These are all empty fields, dry fields, and without any crop. So we chose this village where the farmers are very poor in all kinds of resources, human resource, natural resource like water, and then a knowledge resource, financial resource. They are all poor in all these resources. So we selected this village, and the crop which was grown here was chrysanthemum monocropping, and the soils were very sick with all kinds of root diseases, and there was very poor yield and quality of the produce, and despite using technology also the yield is very poor. So we took these villages as a model village, and we trained the farmers, we gave the right technologies right in their field, and we demonstrated that the yield can be increased more than 10 to 15 times, and their income also has gone up 10 to 15 times. And we brought the happiness on their face. And see, once the abandoned village in 2011, it is repopulated, and the village is prospering, and the village population is increasing. The number of farmers is increasing because of reverse migration of youths from the cities by looking at the economy of that village because of these interventions. So this has attracted the attention of media. So we have brought in a revolution in terms of production, quality, and their profitability. So we have brought in 5 different benefits like economic benefit, employment benefit, environmental benefit, and emotional. This is just one of the models we have done in many crops and in many areas. So I am convinced that Indian farmers do not seek charity, they seek dignity, knowledge, and fair opportunity. Agricultural policy must evolve from short-term welfare to long-term empowerment of farmers. So a pragmatic agricultural policy must therefore be science-driven, farmer-validated, outcome-oriented, nation-centric. Only then can Indian agriculture achieve true sustainability and prosperity, and they can compete on global market. So it's not just subsidies, but it is the productivity and quality by giving proper knowledge. Through that also we can empower the farmers to compete on the global market. So I conclude by saying that agricultural policy in India must change from populism to pragmatism. Thank you. for your patience. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for such deliberative talks on Indian agriculture and agriculture policy and your recommendations and your support to the Indian farmers. Now, we have the privilege to extend our warm welcome to Professor Kenneth in Nairobi, Mount Kenya University. And before we proceed with sir, we would like to introduce Professor Kenneth Wayan Mutama to our audience. Yes, you may proceed, Mr. Vijay.
It is my distinct honor to introduce a distinguished scholar and practitioner who truly bridges the gap between diverse professional worlds. Professor Kenneth Wayan Mutama is a man of rare multidisciplinary expertise, distinguishing himself not only as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, but also as a trained architect. Professor Mutama is currently a professor at Mount Kenya University School of Law, where he also serves as the head of strategic partnership at the Center for International and Development Law. A thought leader in his field, he also serves as the editor-in-chief of the Eastern Africa Journal on international humanitarian law. Beyond the lecture halls, he is a giant in the legal industry, currently serving as the chairman of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, Kenya branch, and as the managing partner at Wain and Associates. His credentials are as impressive as they are diverse, holding a PhD and Master of Law from the University of Cape Town, a law degree from the University of Liverpool, and a Bachelor of Architectural Studies from the University of Nairobi. A celebrated expert in ADR, he is a chartered arbitrator and a fellow who frequently leverages his unique background to adjudicate complex construction and commercial disputes. His excellence continues to be recognized globally, having recently been named the 2024 Law Teacher of the Year. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor Kenneth Wayan Mutama.
Thank you very much, dear and distinguished colleagues. Kindly allow me to keep my camera off. We have started our holidays. I'm actually not in Nairobi, I'm somewhere in Mauritius. And the general nature of the area, I think, puts me in a context that is very different from the ones that you're experiencing. We are in a very informal context in this part of the world. My apologies, I had joined yesterday, but for one or two reasons, it appears my connectivity was having difficulties. I think I understand, but I successfully was able to listen to the proceedings at a much later stage. I'd like to make 4 central points in relation to the topic at hand, and with specific focus on agriculture, subsidies, and the WTO system. The first, of course, is what many of the speakers earlier have said, the uniqueness of agriculture in the context of international trade. I can think of no other comparable yardstick in pronouncing on this uniqueness than the law of war. Because agriculture is a fulcrum to what states consider the question of sovereignty. And the international law system, as you can imagine, is built around the sovereignty. It has a horizontal paradigm in which the law translates into operation, that of equality of states and the question of sovereignty. Food security is at the very center of that issue of sovereignty. And it is, from a domestic point of view, considered to be utmost importance because of political stability. And it has a historical context in which nations have interacted with each other and have either been advantaged or disadvantaged, the law then comes into that context, specifically with the WTO system and its aspiration for trade liberalization. Of course, this all plays out like in many other areas of trade between a divide that has been evident in the north, or rather between the north and the south, with very, very different concerns that pitch development against other very important factors, including environmental factors and so forth. When you look at the WTO agreements, right from the very establishment of the GATT system to where we are, you will find that there are three pillars that are of relevance and of key importance to agriculture. The first, of course, is the question of market access. The second, of course, is discussions around how to deal with domestic support, which is evident. And the third, of course, is a question around export competition on a global scale. All of this is happening in the shadow of the agreement on agriculture and the agreement on technical barriers to trade, which, as you've heard from the distinguished speakers that came before me, is very key in shaping the relationship between each state and the international trade platform in general. As far as market access is concerned, I think, and again, I credit the speakers, so much has been said between yesterday and today. It's generally agreed because of its volumes and also in light of the spirit that international trade and international investment law is pitched and pivoted on, that agriculture is a large consignment when it comes to liberalization under the WTO. The focus, of course, has been on reducing barriers that restrict the access of agricultural products into domestic markets across the world. These barriers are not only found in the traditional DNA alignment of blocks of countries, such as the South and the North, developed and developing, the West and the East and so forth, but they cut across. Historically, for the reasons that I had pointed out, jurisprudence in this area skirts around the issue, knowing that this has been the most protected aspect when it comes to trade. There are, of course, other protected aspects, but I think if a price was to go to a range of goods, and even if you added services under the WTO agreement, you would still find that agriculture tops them. That protection is evidenced by the pace with which tariff reduction commitments have been applied. So there is a general aspiration to reduce those commitments, whether holistically through average tariff levels or individually through specific goods and individual tariff lines. Even though generally the spirit of flexibility is retained, allowing for rapid tariff escalations and so forth, given the unique position that agricultural products can play in the livelihood and the lifeline of a state. the reluctance to reach these aspirations, as you've had, ladies and gentlemen, is mainly epitomized by the persistence of non-tariff barriers. So the discussions and responses to the overt and express tariff reduction commitments has gone into the world of non-tariff barriers. This, of course, includes administrative and procedural barriers, and also at the same time, how jurisprudence has been used at the local scene to create a tension between what are the legitimate concerns, and we look at what those concerns are, as opposed to disguised protectionism. Now, the legitimate, of course, concerns are of two types. I think one, of course, from a policy and strategic point of view, the developing countries have had the concern of the historical advantage developed countries enjoy at the point that this discussion is being held. Many of these countries have had an opportunity to mature their markets from a technological and industrial point of view, an advantage that many developing countries are seeking when it comes to agricultural transformation. At the same time, and I think this is where the crux of the jurisprudence is going to play out in the future, there is a question of the right to food as a legitimate human right, and as a question also of the question of the principle of self-determination. Closely linked to that, as you are all aware, is the growing concern around climate resilience, sustainability, and so forth in the language of development. The WTO has to wriggle its way around these aspects, in addition to what you find in a lot of bilateral investment treaties and what you would also find in many trade treaties, concerns not just around the environment, but also other ancillary human rights, including labor rights and so forth. Now, at the point that we're having this discussion, I think a lot of us will see that the WTO system has come to a cul-de-sac. The dispute resolution system of the panels has been hamstrung by the actions of the US specifically. And what we are seeing is, of course, its inability to churn out jurisprudence at a point where these critical issues face the globe. The response to that has been that more and more bilateral and regional economic structures, including continental structures, are starting to take the center stage on how to deal with those issues. Whether this is a good thing or a bad thing remains to be played out, but one weakness, whether it's at the continental or the bilateral level, is the extent that the core issues that I had mentioned earlier, the question of non-tariff measures, climate change, labor rights, human rights, and so forth, can be dealt with in a decentralized manner, or they require a global framework, a multilateral framework that brings all the parties into the room and, of course, the subject then of authoritative jurisdiction. Alongside all of this, of course, is the limits of the international legal framework, the limits when it comes to enforcement, as evidenced with the hamstrung WTO. Those limits are still evident even in the continental framework, whether you're looking at Asian, whether you look at the Asian structure, the East Africa Free Trade Area, continental dispute structure, and so forth. I think only the European Union has had some success in being able to translate the weaknesses of international law and specifically the replication of enforcement mechanisms, creation mechanisms that you find in the domestic legal structure into the international structure. That an effective court that has an effective enforcement mechanism upon interpretation and an effective legal creative structure that can keep pace with the dynamics, the fast and swift changing dynamics of today, the present world. Let me, as I said, I wanted to keep this my remarks quite brief. Let me suggest that all of this provides a considerable scope for reimagining what equity should look like on this level if the equity is to strike a balance between the very importance of trade, not just for itself, but as a manner of promoting peaceful interaction and relationships between countries, and the equally important concern of food security in a world where there are existential threats such as climate change. I think part of that reimagination includes other very, very growing dynamics, including the digitization of agriculture and agriculture regulation and so forth. In the long run, what that is going to look like in the future, of course, is going to go into the foundations, not just of the WTO reform system, which in many ways ties with many other key reform mechanisms that are being proposed at the international level, including the United Nations and so forth, and the Charter. But it is going to suggest that the role of a world that is very centered, shall I say state-centric, remains an important consideration when we are thinking of how to redefine the roadmap for international trade as far as the sensitivity or that agriculture poses into that in that specific area. Thank you very much to the organizers. As I promised, I would keep my comments quite brief and allow me to hand over back to all of you. I say much appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mutamma. You have elaborated on the various aspects of the WTO and tariff and subsidies. Now, we would like to request Dr. Kenneth Kudayo from Institute of Law and Development, Mount Kenya University, to deliver his talk for the audience.
Thank you very much. I hope you all can hear my voice.
Yes, your voice is clear.
Thank you. I didn't get that. Can you say it again?
We will make you co-host. Wait a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, 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 yes. The first one.
Allow me to share my screen.
Yes, yes, please.
All
Please.
right, thank you.
Yes,
All right, thank you. First of all, my name is Dr. Kenneth Kaunda Kodeo. The previous presenter is my colleague, somebody I highly respect. So following after him is quite just how do I do it?
You
I'm
see
not familiar.
in the bottom of your screen, you have a share option. You may share.
Yeah, I have a share option. I'm looking. Yeah, I've seen it. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you can see my work.
Yes.
I've taken a different route. Let me introduce myself fully and apologize for not forwarding my details earlier. I've been up and down. My name is Dr. Kenneth Kaunda Kodeo. I studied in India many years ago. I was at Nagpur University. So when I was told about this conference, I was very much excited because I love India, having stayed there for 7 years before I went to Europe. I've taught for 10 years in Kenya, and being part of this conference is I've been looking forward to it. However, this is not my area. It's a new area, and I'm very much, I've realized that it's a great area. I need to research more on it. So my work is still under process. I'm working on it. But allow me to present what I have. My topic, I hope you can see my work is just about the constraint green box, and also it's about evaluating the legal status of input subsidies programs in Kenya under World Trade Organization domestic support discipline. So it is more of the support we get from the WTO and also the Kenya subsidies towards agriculture. The central argument, as you can see on the screen, about also around the WTO agreement on agriculture, structurally constrained development, oriented inputs, subsidies. Also, there's the green box. We have various boxes, the green box, the purple box, but mine focuses on the green box criteria and inadequately accommodate the contemporary food security programs, and also the Kenyans NFSP, which exposes the doctrinal ambiguity in AOA, which I'm going to explain, and the incremental reform and interpretative flexibility, which are legally defensible. So that's the central argument of my research work, the 4-part. So let me get into it. Just a second. First, the problem statement is about the Kenya National, NFSP stands for Kenya National Fertilizer Subsidies Program, and it's important. That's my core problem. And how the WTO rules, that's the World Trade Organization rules, if Kenya implement the program, do we exceed the limit allowed by the WTO rules? And are we within the classified or the recognized limits by WTO, as it was under Uruguay agreement? And also the conflict between the development needs and the WTO legal constraint, because the Kenya need to develop, but also Kenya is under the WTO. There are some legal constraints that we have to follow, or legal rules that we have to follow, given to us by them. But at the same time, if we follow them to the letter, how are they going to affect us? So those are the core problem of my research work, which is still undergoing. So my area is what helps farmers. How does it help farmers locally, and how farmers may look into the trade problem internationally, locally and internationally. So that's my core part. The agriculture and the multilateral trading system. There's the Uruguay round. Sorry, my daughter is making noise. Let me close the door. Just give me 1 second. I'll be back. So we have the Uruguay round integration of agriculture into the WTO disciplines, which Kenya is a party to, took the legal approach to this. Then also we have the preservation of the developed country subsidy structure. I'm still just giving the part of my research work, how it is structured. In the asymmetry in the aggregate measurement of support, entitlements, and the emergence of development critic in the Doha roundtable. Those are the areas of my research work, which are the center part of it. I'm simply just giving the introductory part of it, how I'm going to tackle this research in the area. So after the Uruguay agreement, we also have the Doha to Bali, a normative shift. Doha to Bali, a normative shift. The Doha mandates a substantial reduction in trade distortion support. That's the mandate given to the countries. Then there's the failure of 208 modality and the systematic stagnation. So if we fully implement this, the requirement, the Doha, the Uruguay, the WTO, there are consequences that Kenya farmers will face. Before even proceed further, up to now in 2025, we still majorly depend on the agriculture. Is our main source of revenue still. And even the current regime is working tirelessly hard to promote it. So if we fully implement the Doha mandate, the Uruguay mandate, and the 2008 modalities, there's that level of stagnation within our own countries, or in Kenya for that matter. And food prices will be volatile. That is, the issue we've been having is the rising on food prices across the world. Kenya is also included. So implementation, we are members of the WTO. We want to implement their rules. They want to follow them. But there's that fear that it might lead to the food prices going up, interference with our system within our country, and also limiting our farmers from fully getting the benefit of the subsidies within our own countries. So there's that Doha to Bali normative shift, the Bali decision of the public stock holding, which is a legal compromise. Somehow, if I may, the Bali decision, this is my argument, it came about as a compromise between Doha and Uruguay because of the strictness of the two. This is my argument. It could be wrong, but it's my argument. So just bear with me. So I've already spoken about the research problem, which I'm still doing. I'm working on this, perfecting it, because I'm assuming that at some point we'll be asked to submit them for publication. So these are some of the research problems that I've already spoken about in my research work, the one I'm working on right now. The input subsidy, the first part is the only four. The input subsidies that are indispensable for food security in developing states. And the AOA classification rules are formalistic and price-centric. That's very much core part of it. A nation that cannot feed its people subject is a failed nation, or a country or a government that presides over a high food prices. That is as basically mandated by the World Trade Organization, the Uruguay. The consequences that they may not be able to feed their people because of the prices of the food. So that's a problem there. That's classification rule as a formative and price-centric. If the price of the product, if they go up, they become very expensive for the common man to be able to afford. The consequences are there. The NFSP, which I've already highlighted, the full form of it is the National Fertilizer Subsidies Program. That is, in Kenya, we subsidize fertilizer. Our government, almost for every farming period, they always subsidize to some extent fertilizer. We had somewhat of an issue earlier this year, but now there's fertilizer subsidy just to help farmers grow crops and make food prices go down and affordable within our borders. I put it there as one of the problem, or the research problem, because if it goes up, or if there's no subsidies, then the farmers will have to sell their produce at a very high price, which the local or the common man won't be able to afford. the consequences of that, as I see it, and this is a research I'm doing, not yet fully done with it, the consequences that we will end up having a failed state. You can't feed your people because it is very expensive. They'll have to riot. We've had cases of rioting in Kenya last year and this year, and I'm sure the government is very keen on that, ensure that we do not get to that level. Then now there's the legal uncertainty, the child's legitimate developmental policy. What are the policies they put in place to ensure that if we follow the World Trade Organization rules, the Uruguay rules, the DOA, the Bali, the benefit we are getting, are we likely to suffer? Are we going to face some consequence? Because number one mandate, as far as I see it, of the government is to ensure that its people are protected and can afford food, can afford basic needs. So we need to, because we are members of World Trade Organization, we're member of Bali, Uruguay, all of them. But if we follow them to the letter, what are the consequences we are likely to face? Because most of these things, most of these rules are tested by countries. They are there, we test them, we see how they work. Are they positively affecting our people or negatively affecting our people? So the legal uncertainty, there's that there. Now, I have the methodology I've relied on is basically doctrinal legal analysis. I realized that was quite hard for me to do empirical research on this matter, given the time frame. I mean, it was quite short, but still I'm working on it. I hope I'll be able to also, to a smaller extent, do some empirical research, but I've relied majorly on the doctrinal legal analysis of the World Trade Organization text, the negotiating history, how it has affected the other countries since 1995 to date. And so I've also dealt with the case study approach, how Kenyan system, this is how we see the practicality of the law through case study approach, how people are affected by the rules, how farmers are experiencing that. So there's that case study approach I've applied, I've relied on that. There's also the comparative references. My research work, I'm comparing Kenya, India, having been to India, I studied in India, stayed there for 7 years, Nagpur University. In fact, I was supposed to come to Mysore. So anyway, I'm doing comparative research, developed countries to see how they are implementing their system, how it's working in their country, what we can borrow from theirs, if there's anything they can borrow from us. So there's that level of it. Then there's also the normative assessment of the reform proposals. Because at some point I'll be proposing to the bodies that are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that these rules are followed, the laws that are there are followed, how they can maybe make an amendment, make some changes. So those are the methodologies I've relied on. I hope you can still see my projection. If it's not there, can let me know. Let me proceed. Just a second.
Yes, sir.
So then there's that architecture of support under the AOA. Just 1 minute. Let me, just 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me close a window. Some window is misbehaving. It's making my presentation quite slow. Just a minute. All right. So there's that architecture of the domestic support under the AOA. That is the regulatory. Basically, it's supposed to be more of regulator to regulate, but not to prohibit. They are not supposed to prohibit farmers and countries from doing certain things, even though that's the aim of regulation, but it's supposed to regulate their behavior. So approach should be subsidies. What are the subsidies we need as farmers or to give our farmers to ensure that they can afford to produce food, they can afford to sell them at a very affordable rate? So under the World Trade Organization, they have various boxes. They have the green box. I mean, it's classified as such. I'll share this with you. There's green box, there's amber box, and then there is the blue box. So I will explain what they stand for or what they mean. just what green box is all about. What is happening? I don't know whether you can see my screen. It's keep on bouncing. If you can see my screen, can you let me know? Okay, I'm hoping you can see my screen. Let me proceed. So we have the green box, we have the amber box. Now, green box is basically one of the main three categories of the domestic agricultural support under the AOA. That is amber box and the blue box. So green box measures that are allowed without limits. That is, they are considered to cause no or at most minimal trade distortion. That's green box. The features of the green box, they basically include them government funded, that is the measure how much government is funding, maybe farmers, in this case, the consumers. They not involve the price support to producers. They don't support the producer financially to that extent, but the government, they can give some subsidies to farmers to ensure that, or to assist them in the production. They have minimal or no effect on the production or trade. That's the green box. I hope I'm being clear. Then green box, we have various examples. They include the agricultural research and extension of services, the pest and disease control. Then those are the examples of the green box. They include the agricultural research and extension services, pest and disease control, the infrastructure, road, irrigation storage, then environment protection programs. Those are some of the examples. The disaster relief, those are some of the green box that we have. They also have the couple income support. They're not linked to current production crisis level, but basically the green box is about the extending the agricultural research and services, ensure that there's pest and disease control to not affect the production of the produce, for that matter. The environmental protection program, those are the things including the green box, some of them. Now, in Kenya, where I come from, why does it matter? Why this matter? That's the green box. I'm a Kenyan, so my source is more of Kenyan centered. So Kenya, basically is classified as an agricultural nation, basically, even though that's our main source of revenue. So we have input, which I've already mentioned, subsidies program. So green box is very important in our country because green box support does not count towards reduction commitment and is legally safer under World Trade Organization rules, especially for developing countries like Kenya. I hope I'm making sense. If I'm not making sense, kindly you can stop me. So that's about green box. Now, amber box, which is also one of the categories of under the World Trade Organization, is more of the market price support. So amber box, it refers to the trade distortion domestic support for agriculture under the World Trade Organization or on agriculture. That's the World Trade Organization Agreement on Agriculture. AOA stands for Agreement on Agriculture. So amber box, it refers to trade distortion domestic support for agriculture under the World Trade Organization Agreement on Agriculture, AOA. So amber box covers all agricultural subsidies that directly affects production and prices. Amber box affects production and prices and encourages farmers to produce more, thereby they distort trade. In Kenya, we have had some kind of issues. There were these are just allegations, we have no evidence to them, that some people will import sugar and other products from out of the country to interfere with the local farmers. So there have been push among the farmers and the people who are in charge, let's say the common man, for their products to be given the first priority, because the affecting of their prices when they are importation from other countries, that is somehow lowering farmers' morale. They're like, we produce, but we don't sell in our countries. And before we export or before we import others to our country, why don't we first exhaust with the ones we have in Kenya? So that's amber box for that matter. We have green box and we have amber box. So amber box, I've already discussed that. Now the last one, which I also want to talk about a little bit, is the blue box. Now blue box is more of it's also under the World Trade Organization Agreement on Agriculture, AOA Agreement on Agriculture. It refers to a special category of agricultural subsidies. It's more close to green box under the World Trade Organization Agreement on Agriculture. So it's more of a special category of agricultural subsidies. And they are also trade distorting, which are allowed because they are linked to production limiting programs. I hope that is clear. If there's any question, I'm ready to answer. So we discussed about the green box, which is about the funding, and I've gone ahead to cover other boxes as well. So these ones I've discussed up to that point. So there's Kenyan agricultural policy. The Kenya's agricultural policy legacy. That is, from the moment we got our independence. I'm aware India got its high independence in 1947. We came about in the year 1963. 1964, we became a republic. So since then, we've been trying to find better ways to promote agriculture within our country, basically to ensure that food is affordable, production is high, and that also follow the international guidelines given to us by the World Trade Organization. So there have been post-independent state-led models. There have been various models trying to ensure that it's more of how can we ensure production is high, the prices are low, food is affordable. That's what like our motto, like, because the way I said earlier, a country that cannot feed its people, or a government that cannot feed its people, is a failed government. The moment food prices are high and common men can't afford, only the middle class and higher class, then you have failed as a state. So the policy in Kenya is more of various models being tested since 1964. This is 63 to date. Now we have a constitution that came into place in 2010. So they're testing all these things to see if, like, which one is the best model. There's the adjustment of the law, the structures, the subsidies, like even the current regime, when they were campaigning, one of their manifesto was subsidizing the fertilizer, ensuring that farmers can get fertilizer at an affordable price, affordable rate, because food production is one of the issues that has to be discussed. So under this agreement on agriculture, Kenya, under the agreement on agriculture, some of the, we rely on the green box. I've already discussed the green box. We rely on it so much. And blue box is somehow absent in our system for that matter. Allow me to proceed. If there's any question, you can just stop me. So I've spoken about the National Fertilizer Subsidies Program is there just to ensure or enhance productivity and food security. Government procure, like the current regime, they procure fertilizer in large quantity. Of course, there are some scandals here and there, but at least the maize fertilizer are affordable to our people, to our farmers, and they ensure that they could reach farmers on time, I think so, and they were utilized. I remember, I think it was earlier this year, sometime this year, not early, but sometime this year, our president was bragging about the production. That was his initiative, making sure that fertilizer is affordable. So there's the National Fertilizer Subsidy Program, which objective is to enhance production and food security. Imagine if a country depends on outsiders to feed it or to feed her. Let's say a country depending on USA, India, China, and other countries, that would be very terrible, because if they refuse to give you food, your people can starve. They can be like, you either give us this thing or we don't feed you. So that's an area that any sensible government must take seriously. Ensure that you can feed your people, and ensure that there are mechanisms, there are rules, there are laws in place, there are intervention. When the prices are going up, the government must intervene. They can subsidize food, they can find a way to pay farmers or to buy from farmers, then they sell cheaply or affordably to the common man. Market price support, they can support them, which I've already mentioned about government buying in bulk and then selling to farmers, to local people, so that they can somehow subsidize food item, all those things. So that's still another market price support. Still, we have some issues here and there, the controversy, because even though we are supposed to follow the WTO, we don't follow them to the latter. There's some kind of conflict, because if you follow them to the latter or to the letter, at some point we'll end up hurting our own farmers, hurting our own people. So that we have to somehow, sometimes, occasionally, find ways to circumvent the rules to favor us. I hope I'm making sense, and I think that should be it. Still a research I'm doing. I'm still doing this research. I'm almost done with it. And if this publication, I will, the moment you reach out to us, I'll share my work. I'm sure it'll be done by January and share it for publication. So in case of any question, I'm here to answer regarding my presentation. In case of any doubt, if I wasn't clear, kindly forgive me. I'm here to respond to any question. Thank you for the opportunity. I am done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kenneth. Is there any question concerning Dr. Kenneth's presentation, speech? Now, I would like to invite Mr. George Mina from the Mount Kenya University to address the gathering. Mr. George, are you there? We're looking to invite Dr. Alex. Seeing none. Finally, I have honor to invite Ms. Jacqueline. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Shall we proceed with you?
Yes, I am
please
available.
proceed. Yeah, please
Yes,
proceed.
yes. You will allow me to share my presentation?
Yes, you will be allowed.
Yeah, thank you.
You can share, yes.
Okay. Just give me a minute. Oops. So, I hope you can see the presentation on your end.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, great. And you can see my presentation on the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So I think I'm the last session today, and I know I'm standing between everybody and their weekend, but I wanted to take first the opportunity to thank the organizers for inviting us and inviting me in particular to participate in today's two-day conference. And I will be speaking on whether it's an equalizer or an entrencher, and my area of research is artificial intelligence and sustainable finance, and those are the areas that I am really mostly concerned about in my day-to-day research work. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Nairobi, and I am also a practitioner in these areas and others, including dispute resolution and governance in Kenya and Africa as a whole. So the title of my presentation is Equalizer or Entrencher, Artificial Intelligence, Sustainable Finance, and Africa's Agricultural Subsidy Dilemma Within the World Trade Organization System. So I wanted to welcome you and just to mention that there are many ways to look at this subject, but the key areas that I thought that I would look at for this particular conference would be the WTO legal constraints and the AI and ESG tools in subsidy delivery, as well as equity versus entrenchment in global governance. Perhaps the first question you might want to ask me is, why am I talking about ESG? And my nexus of interrogation or research is sustainable finance. The ESG, and that's environmental social governance tools, are the approaches that we are now using for reporting and for looking at the metrics that ultimately build up to sustainable finance. Sustainable finance being the long-term view of the tools, the ESG tools that I tend to look at. So I will jump right into it and just mention the core dilemma. Africa historically, and I guess even the global South, has not had the opportunities that it currently has with the advent of these two twins that I research, artificial intelligence and sustainable finance. The new emerging areas, the tools that they are providing are giving us a real opportunity to leapfrog in agriculture and food systems, and they're doing this by bypassing the old pre-existing inefficiencies. Artificial intelligence creates infrastructure, it enables scaling, and sustainable finance then looks at how do we bring financing to the table, and financing is banking and insurance, also risk management in this particular space. Now, while the opportunity exists, and while we're able to look at agriculture and in many ways also look at many of the other SDG opportunities, the 17 SDGs, what will probably weigh us down like an anchor, and I don't want to say this as necessarily what is going to happen, but we anticipate that the WTO's agreement on agriculture is really grounded on very traditional subsidy models. Of course, we've heard from the previous speakers about the green, amber, and blue boxes. And the way artificial intelligence and sustainable finance is emerging and growing, its adoption and adaptation, it's not necessarily fitting into those pre-existing categorizations. And when we engage the development enhancing tools, there is a potential and the possibility that we could go into a very murky area, or at least a very gray legal area of trade distortion. So for developed countries, they have the legal bandwidth, they have the subsidy space. In fact, they are protecting this and the digital infrastructure very, very aggressively. And while we look at Africa, on the other hand, we still lack the subsidy power and the legal influence in the WTO. Nevertheless, we have people who are engaging in deep learning, in machine learning, and also in artificial intelligence. And every day there are new developments and they're impacting pretty much everything and we are doing in this space, and in fact everywhere, and agriculture is no exception. I also mentioned that my colleagues, those who came before me, have already spoken about the WTO agreements impacting on agriculture. I'm not really going to go into them in detail, safe to say that the agreement on agriculture, the WTO agreement on agriculture, speaks to market extension, domestic support, and export competition. And to say this because they will be affected, and they are becoming affected by the new and emerging areas that I am speaking about. The agreement on agriculture also tends to be read together with the sanitary and phytosanitary measures agreement. And here is where we're looking at the scientific justification and risk assessment. There's a lot of emphasis on harmonization, on international standards and equivalence, non-discrimination and transparency. And then the key focus is to have the least trade restrictive approach and also to adapt to regional conditions. So there is some concessionary or nod, if you like, to the expectation that different regional conditions may affect or may be considered under the sanitary and phytosanitary measures agreement. There's agreement on standards, which is strongly connected or highly connected with the sanitary and phytosanitary measures agreement. And there's obviously the agreement on intellectual property, that really adopts non-discrimination policies, and that's the national treatment and most favored nation treatment. These are really fundamental policies or approaches and principles under the WTA system. And then the minimum standards of protection, so that we don't have nations that are overly protecting their intellectual property, and then the enforcement procedures that go with this. Let's talk about Africa and think about what happens in Africa. I think it's important to highlight that, probably unlike the situation in India, the farmer who produces most of the food in Africa are smallholder farmers, and we cannot lose sight of that, because this creates a dynamic that is unique to Africa. And also we find the smallholder farmers within the rural employment frameworks. And therefore the challenge then means that even while we are saying that we want agriculture to thrive in Africa, the challenge is that first we must equip the farmer, we must equip the laborers, we must look for capital. And as things stand, the investment gap in African agriculture is more than $25 billion annually. And when you look at what the GDP or the market that is created in agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa, it contributes about 23% of the GDP. And you see now that most of the people are engaged in, or they're smallholders, and they are producing a very small amount. So also questions of food security come into play. There's a question of poverty and poverty alleviation. There's also climate change, which is threatening, and by current accounts, this anecdotal and also projection, trend analysis, that climate change could cut African crop yields by almost 30% by 2050. So there are WTO constraints, and I will look at this in a little bit more detail, but there are also development needs in Africa that are really crying out for attention. And even at the moment, Africa's ability to match the massive subsidies in the global north is severely constrained. So we have all these new also emerging issues, the climate change, and also the historic underinvestment in agriculture in Africa. So even with that dire prediction, or that foundation, or my foundational comments, I think it's still important to say that sustainable finance and artificial intelligence are increasingly being adopted in agriculture. And this is by way of precision farming, also yield prediction, there's subsidy targeting and climate smart practices. And then within the realm of finance, and this is sustainable finance, we have the emergence of green bonds. Countries like Kenya, even the African Union has come up with a taxonomy for green bonds. And this has opened up doors for ESG-linked loans, so that if an institution, if farmers are able to demonstrate through ESG reporting that they are engaging in in green farming, if you like, then the potential for gaining finance is increasing. There's also the advent of carbon credits, and then also blended finance models. And in addition to this, then there is the question of risk management, how AI is emerging in managing agricultural risks through precision farming, and also insurance and credit scoring to also enable farmers, attract financing. There has been an effort even in Kenya for genetic intensification, although the attempt to open up the GMO legal framework hit a snag in Kenya. There is at least quite a bit of research that is also going on in this particular space. And then there's now the socio-economic intensification to create enabling environments to build social capital and also train the farmers and provide digital platforms. There's e-wallet in Nigeria. Ghana also has smart subsidies that are emerging through their digital platforms. Kenya has a very well-established M-Pesa platform and a Hustler Fund that also looks at providing, quick finance for the smallholder farmers. So there are developments. The only question is, because there are now legal conflicts also emerge at the intersection of AI, sustainable finance, and the WTO principles. Questions such as the e-wallets I've mentioned, will they distort output? Will they breach the de minimis WTO framework and provisions? And will also questions of AI-driven carbon verification and tied to payments also remove this provision or this support from qualifying for the green to be categorized under the green box? What about the ESG loans with favorable terms? Is it a financial incentive for certain crops? So are these indirect subsidies? How are they going to be treated? Because many of these questions that are emerging are yet to be tested within the WTO legal system principles and framework. What about climate smart insurance and with public backing? If it's linked to yield or output, this could affect trade. And then the question then becomes, how is it going to be classified under the agreement of agriculture? And then the green infrastructure finance. And, because I just mentioned what's happening in Kenya with the central bank green taxonomy. And also its adoption at the, I think it happened this year for at the African Union level. So is it a challenge? And I mean, is it going to come under national treatment in the GATT framework or in the SCM agreement as well? So we can expect that these questions are going to occupy us for quite a while. I've tried to look at what may or may not fall within the green box, amber box, and the blue box, and I've also introduced a gray zone where we are not so sure where this is going to land. So at this point in time, as we're getting into these emerging areas, the questions that we will ask ourselves is that, is AI going to camouflage subsidies under the WTO radar? And you see, AI is going very closely connected with finance and sustainable finance at that. And would there be a question as to whether these are technological advances or whether these are indirect subsidies under the WTO framework? Does sustainable finance count as a non-trade distorting green box support? If it is research and development, maybe. If it is to service anything that's related to environmental and environmental aspects, if it is mostly about crop insurance and carbon credit programs, if they're decoupled, then there's a good possibility that they will fall under the green box. The problem now starts coming in when there is ambiguity. Would these AI-driven subsidies be legal if they indirectly benefit production? And then, of course, this would tend to flow, not necessarily as agriculture generally, but on a crop-by-crop consideration. How is this going to affect us? So if they're AI-targeted input subsidies and they are for specific crops, or say for dairy farming, then are they going to be within the amber box, or is it R&D? Which one is going to prevail in the long run? And then also if there are any yield-linked ESG loan programs or output incentivized carbon markets. Let me say something about the ESG loan programs. There are some companies in East Africa now which support the production of crops. They give farmers advice through the phone. And then what tends to happen is that these companies are giving smartphones to the farmers. And many times the smartphones are given on a loan subsidy, a loan program basis. So when you have a situation like that, then are we dangerously skirting within the amber box? And then the question that arises, and probably for purposes of my presentation, the gray zone is the area where nobody really knows or can identify or predict at this point in time. So if for example, the example that I've given of providing smartphones and then giving loan, payment terms for them to pay for this, for smart irrigation, for different products and different crops in different areas. And if it's, when I mentioned the Hustler Fund, it's a digital loan that is provided through the phone or the e-wallets in Nigeria. Then is this a digital agricultural credit? Notwithstanding the fact that the Hustler Fund is given to different people along the production line, including those who are going to market, then where do they fall? How are they impacted on the WTO, in the WTO system? So the key challenge that we have right now is that there's I think we can perceive already that there's a regulatory lag between the WTO and the 21st century financing tools and AI technology. And I haven't even mentioned blockchain or cryptocurrency or fintech, as they're calling it today. Why do all these considerations matter for Africa? If you look at the map of Africa presented, the countries in red, these are the MENA countries. They import, 75%, I think even India is there, or more, or food consumption, although this may be different given what I had other speakers speak about earlier today. Countries like Kenya, we import 25 to 50% of our food consumption. There are those countries which are food secure. They are marked in green. So the question then becomes, for Africa, with such a loop-sided need for development push, and these new tools that have arrived, AI and sustainable finance, they are available for us to close the agricultural productivity gap. So then also just thinking about, okay, there are those areas with less, less rain or availability of water. So, and then do we need to campaign or champion that the WTO legal system's rigidity then be relaxed a bit so that we can allow for innovation. And then the problem is we may seek, to innovate and then also risk sanctions. Or then do we say, oh, the system is too rigid, it's too onerous for us to comply, and then we tell ourselves that we can remain inefficient. The dilemma remains that the developed countries have legal and technical muscle to structure their AI and ESG tools to fit within the green box rules. In very many cases, Africa does not have the same muscle, the same technological, but legal and technological muscle, because these two would need to move together, because as we are developing this space, then we must ask ourselves, so where is the law and how does the law impact this space? So, of course, there's no point just talking about the challenges without without thinking through the possible solutions through policy and legal pathways. In the short term, there is need for a concerted effort. I think we're about 54 countries in Africa, we should be championing WTO reforms to include Africa, notwithstanding the challenges that still pertain with the current architecture as it is. And one of the short-term reforms we should be looking for or pushing for is to ensure that WTO recognizes developmental subsidies for food security and also to mitigate the climate change effects. And also then in the medium term, to reconsider, to recalibrate, to re-engineer, whatever word we use, but to ensure that the green box definitions allow and include AI and ESG-linked support, especially for the situation that we have in Africa. And long-term is to create an African artificial agri-tech regulatory bloc to negotiate collectively with the WTO. So we should note that there is a great need for the development of Africa-centric subsidy norms in the next WTO reform round. So the call to action, at least from where I'm sitting, is that first is to observe that if AI is to become an equalizer, then the WTO law must evolve. I don't think that is negotiable, because if it doesn't, it then will create a situation where we will entrench a digital divide that does not favor Africa, which has a significant amount of arable land, and this arable land should be exploited. Therefore, my call to action is for legal innovation for agricultural justice that recognizes the emerging, growing legal, technological asymmetries. And of course, my perspective is from the perspective of artificial intelligence and sustainable finance. I'd looked at the dispute settlement process, but I think that's beyond what I would want to cover at this point in time. If there are any questions, I will be happy to take them. Thank you very much again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Is there any question pertaining to Ms. Jacqueline's speech from audience? Seeing none, I shall now have a privilege to request Mr. Josephine Thomas, Faculty of Law, JSS Law College, to propose the word of thanks for today's program.
Thank you. So as we conclude the second day of this international conference on legal dimensions of agricultural subsidies in the WTO, today's sessions have clearly highlighted the importance of this theme in the context of global trade, food security, and sustainable agriculture development. I sincerely thank the University of Mysuru and respectfully acknowledge Professor Dr. Loknath, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Srimati M.K. Savida, Registrar, and Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin, Dean Faculty of Law and Chairman. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our collaborating institutions and their representatives, Professor K.S. Suresh, Chief Executive, JSS Law College, Mysore, India, Dr. N. Vani, Principal, JSS Law College, and Organizing Secretary of this conference, Professor Dr. Nicholas from UCLouvain, Belgium, Professor Dr. Kenneth Wayne from School of Law, Mount Kenya University, Kenya. My special thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Vasanth Kumar, Managing Director and Chief Scientific Officer, Greenlife Croptech, for sparing his valuable time and sharing his insightful thoughts. Our guest of honor, Professor Dr. T.N. Venkata Reddy, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru, for sharing insights on agriculture market policy in India. And my heartfelt appreciation to all the esteemed speakers, Professor Dr. Kenneth Wayne, Dr. Kenneth Kodia, Ms. Jacqueline, for your invaluable contributions and meaningful presentations. Finally, I thank Dr. Syed Qudrat, Coordinator, and Mr. Abhijit, Student Member, whose behind-the-scenes efforts and teamwork made this conference a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all participants.